All right, guys, let's continue on and talking about Terminator Dark Fate. Now, the movie is going to be coming out next week here in the United States. It's already out in the UK. Now, James Cameron is coming back to produce this movie. Tim Miller is the director of the movie. Now, there's a big question going around. Is this about Sarah Connor, or is the Terminator franchise about John Connor? Now, if you ask me, it's kind of a mixture of both. Terminator 1 was clearly about Sarah Connor. No doubt about it whatsoever. It was about a Terminator coming back in time to assassinate Sarah Connor because she's going to give birth to the leader of the human resistance, John Connor. And if you remember back to T1, the resistance, they won the war. The defense grid for Skynet was damaged. It was done. It was over. And that's when they sent a Terminator back in time to wipe out John Connor's existence. Now you get to Terminator 2. Terminator 2, we find out that Skynet will live on because of what happened at the end of T1. The metal arm, the CPU chip wasn't destroyed, so therefore Skynet has a new life. And to me, that movie was really more about a combination of Sarah Connor and John Connor. But I think the overall bigger picture is that Terminator is about John Connor. Now, I know that in Terminator Dark Fate, they're trying to tell you that Terminator is about the story of Sarah Connor. Now, if you remember back to T1 again, if you look at the Future Wars, Sarah Connor is not around. Apparently, she's dead because Skynet, they knew nothing about where she was. They knew the city where she was in, but they didn't know what she looked like. Nothing. So the future is really not about Sarah Connor. It's about John Connor. And I think that's what Terminator Salvation really tried to establish, that the Terminator franchise is about John Connor. And I think people have really been craving for the Future Wars. So that's why I really like Terminator Salvation a lot, because ever since 1984, we've been pretty much stuck in the past. Sarah Connor, John Connor as a kid. Terminator 3 comes out, Rise of the Machines. And that movie was really about setting up the Future Wars. Now, in case you don't know, Terminator Salvation was a direct sequel to Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines. Now, I don't think we're ever going to get back to the Future Wars. I don't think so, because if we actually went to the Future Wars, there would have to be an explanation as to, all right, we need some finality. If finality comes in the way of the Future Wars, that's it for Terminator. There's nothing else that can be told about Terminator. And I think that Skydance, they want to milk this cow for as much as it can. I think the future of Terminator is going to be strictly non-Future Wars. I want the Future Wars. I really want to see what James Cameron has in mind as far as the wars go. We know how the Resistance wins, but there's a lot of story to be told in between everything that happens from the beginning of the war to the end of the war. I mean, if you look at the timeline, Judgment Day actually was supposed to happen in 1998. Now, with this new Terminator Dark Fate, I'm not exactly sure when it's going to start. But if you just go by the old timeline, you can do alternate timelines. You know, they've been doing that before. If you go by the old timeline, Judgment Day was in 1997. Now, Kyle Reese comes from the year 2029. You have a lot of years. You can tell a bunch of stories about the Future Wars. I mean, John Connor doesn't necessarily have to start off as the leader of the Resistance, but eventually you'll have to get to his story. I mean, I think the wars go all the way to like 2040 or something like that. It's a long, long war. And it's not going to be ending anytime soon. So if they keep milking this cow of Sarah Connor for what it's worth, even though I love Sarah Connor, you're going to have to move on and give us John Connor. You're going to have to give us the war against the machines. I mean, who wouldn't want to see a movie where the Resistance fights a bunch of T-800s? And actually a bunch of T-800s that are covered in human skin that look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. I think that would be really, really cool. Now, that's something that Terminator Salvation, they kind of touched upon that, but not too much. We had that one scene with the T-800 that looked like Arnold, and that was it. And he duked it out with John Connor, portrayed by Christian Bale. But they only kept him in the Arnold skin for like a minute or so, just for nostalgia purposes, and they made sure to blow off all his skin. But if you had a whole movie where the Resistance was fighting a bunch of T-800s that all look like Arnold, I think a lot of people would be on board with that. As much as we love Sarah Connor, the future has to move on from her to John Connor. John Connor was the prophesized leader of the Resistance. Now, even though we know that it's Danny Ramos now for some crazy reason, but I think they should have went the other route. They should have went the route with the Future Wars. Maybe Sarah Connor could have started off fighting in the Future Wars, you know, under some other name or something like that. You know, they could have came up with something to where they didn't have to retcon Sarah Connor. But still, the future of Terminator was always about John Connor. It was about getting from point A to point B. Point A was about saving Sarah Connor. Point B was the end of the war. And I just don't think we're ever going to see that. As much as I want to see it, I don't think we're ever going to see it. But that's just my thoughts on this. What are your thoughts on this? Terminator should have went in a different direction. Is Terminator really more about John Connor or Sarah Connor? Let me know what you guys think about all this in the comments. If you're new here to the channel, please hit subscribe to catch future videos from me, and we will catch you on the next video. John Matrixx, out.